And you can. My name's Courtney, by the way.
Okay. All right, we're live. My name is Attorney Vince Davis, and this is The Secret, How to Fight CPS and Win. I'm joined by my two guest hosts, or not guest hosts, co-hosts. The first one is Miss Deidre Payne. Miss Payne is from the OC here in California, Orange County. Good evening, Deidre. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Do we have a little delay, kind of like there was like a delay? Were you thinking about what to say?
Well, I just got done being at the water park all day with the
There's
kids, so I'm
technology
literally
on
like, no, I've been in the sun all day, so my mind and everything is just fried. But I'm good.
You have heat stroke?
Yes, I was with my kids, so everything was good. So I'm good in that one.
Good.
I'll take the heat stroke for them.
And from all the way from Maine, our other co-host, Mr. Darren Guy. Mr. Guy, how are you today?
I'm good. We're floating up here. We got so much rain today. It's crazy. I'm not even kidding. People's roofs leaking all over. It's crazy. Like we must be doing inches a second at some point, and it's been that way since 7 this morning.
Is that unusual or is it typical?
Oh, I mean, it rains, but not like that. This is like downpour. People are having some flooding basements right now.
Okay.
That used to be what I did for a living, so I just think about people are out there in their vans right now, and I mean, there's a lot of water. I got my boots, everything on right now.
Hey, you guys,
I'm not floating.
Somebody's calling me right now.
Hey!
Answer it on the live show.
She doesn't want to talk to me. She does not want to talk to me.
All right. Wait, hold on. We have a special guest tonight, Miss Courtney Gray.
Mm-hmm.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fine. And where are you calling in from?
I'm calling from my business office in New York, but I reside in the state of Pennsylvania.
Is that a long commute or close?
It's about an hour. I work two jobs. I'm a waitress, and then I'm also a tattoo artist. So I have a lot of clients up in New York. So it's just easier to have my office up here.
Have you been on one of those reality ink shows yet?
No, not yet.
Okay. So I'm looking at the headset you have. It looks very high tech.
I know.
It's a gamer's
headset. Are you
headset.
using it?
It's a gamer's headset.
Okay. Is that the same?
Darren, don't be teasing us.
Is that the same one?
I think it is.
Oh!
Yeah. See? She knows what's
up.
Wow.
See?
Mr. Davis,
but are you using yours, Courtney?
I am told.
Are you actually using yours, Courtney, or no?
Yes.
Like right now?
Yeah, the mic,
you are.
The mic is on mine, yeah. My camera doesn't have a mic, so I got to use my headset for the mic.
Got it.
Courtney, I'm told that brand of headphone right now is the best on the market. Is that true?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
What's the brand?
Well, me and Mr. Davis have one in the mail coming from Darren.
I'm not entirely sure what the brand name is. It's kind of like a present.
Oh, okay. All right. So, you dealing with CPS New York or CPS Pennsylvania?
I'm dealing with CPS. Well, we call it CYS over here. But I'm dealing it with Pennsylvania.
Okay. So what's going on in PA with CPS?
See, I kind of feel weird because the lady that was on here before, she said that her, like she said, she's got a very complicated and complex situation, but all of them usually are. In order to get everybody on the same boat and on the same page with mine, I have to go back to November 27th of 2022. The father of my child, I have 3 daughters, a 10-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a daughter that just turned 2 on the 31st of July. The father of my youngest was using opiates, and he actually started coming after me and cornered me and the child as I was holding our child. And he was getting really belligerent and even got physical with me and started, choking me. And I was able to luckily remove myself from that chokehold with the baby, and I ran next door to my neighbors. And when I was over there, he called the police on me, and framed me for physically assaulting him, which I did not do. And I was taken from my home. The police officer that arrived knew that the father was under the influence and still left the baby with the father and still took me. And when I was placed into holding, I wasn't even like actually arrested, but I was just placed in a holding. And when I was in holding, I actually got a call while I was in there from the CYS worker that arrived, stating that the father overdosed in my house in front of the child. And I got all three of my kids taken from me because of that. And it's been an uphill battle because the CYS have been trying to depict me as a drug user, and I have never even done drugs other than a medical marijuana card, which I obtain. And I've given plenty of clean drug screenings to them. I've went through domestic violence groups, which was actually changed because of me and my situation. They changed the name to Battered Women's Group. I completed that. I go to therapy. I go to trauma assessments. I had to get a mental evaluation done. And I actually just went back to court for an adjudication hearing on the 2-year-old. And pardon me, the judge went over all of my stuff that I have completed and given me my child back. Well, she was only at home for 5 hours, and I had a knock on the door by CYS again, and they were demanding that they take my child again because they didn't like my paramour.
Your what?
The person I was dating.
What was up with the person you were dating?
He has some stuff on his background that from 14 years ago, over a decade old, that the father of my child found, and he brought it to CYS's attention and had a problem with it. But the crazy thing is I have a PFA set up against the father of my child because of the stuff that I had to be put through. And he was actually caught by the person I was dating breaking into my home.
Well, after they took the child 5 hours later, after you got the child back, have you had a court hearing?
I go into court on the 15th.
Okay. Did you happen to see our seminar on Saturday?
I did not know.
Because one of the topics that I covered was the initial hearing. It's called a detention hearing. And in different states, it's called different things. I guess in Maine, they call it the 72-hour hearing. Here in California, where I am and where Deidre is, they call it the detention hearing.
Okay.
But they're all basically the same. And it talks about some of the issues that you need to start thinking of before you go into the hearing. Yesterday's show, I talked about some of the things that you need to talk about or think about during the hearing. And today, if I have time, I don't think I will because I have 2 guests today. But today or tomorrow, I'm going to talk about what you need to do after that initial hearing. And now, since you're going back for the hearing, this is basically a detention hearing where they're trying to take the child away from you again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's easy. I'll say this. It's easy for you to remedy this situation for the time being. To temporarily resolve it is just to have the paramour move out.
Right. And the paramour wasn't even living with me to begin with. He was actually, so the reason why he was even at my home that day was because, so the adjudication hearing for my child was later in the afternoon, and he was actually summoned to court in the morning due to the charges brought forth on the father of the child because he was breaking into my home and he was the eyewitness to the crime. So he had to be at court either way, and somebody didn't get what they wanted and they retaliated. And
Well, you know what? I wasn't even there, but I bet you that I know what happened. The father probably told the social workers about your paramour
They did. So
Why?
I actually got a packet of all of the allegations sent to me. And I actually just got done today after digging for a week and a half on background reports and criminal history reports, places of work that my paramour has been able to do. And I went through all of their allegations because a lot of them were actually falsely reported. Like none of this even happened, or they were contradicting themselves. Like in one statement of the allegation packet, it stated that I did not provide them with any documentations. And then the very next sentence it says, "Oh, well, Miss Gray did, provide documentation." So I went through these allegations, and I wrote my own, pretty much my own discovery packet with my own findings of my own evidence against this person and all the things that I've been still doing, which, continually going to trauma therapy and regular therapy. We have these things called, I just call them a drug patch. It looks like a nicotine patch, but you wear it for an extended period of time and it indicates, any drug use. I've had clean ones for 6 months straight, and I had one come up with cocaine in my system, which sparked some concerns with myself because I've never done that in my life, and so it's not the only thing that the cocaine showed up. But like I said, I use medical marijuana for multiple reasons, and that didn't even show in the patch, like at all. And it was like one of the patches that I was given right before court of me going and getting my child back. And we found another one, and I asked the CYS people, okay, did THC show up in this patch? And they said no. And I was like, well, then I'm going to refuse those. I will gladly do other forms of screening if you still think that I need them. But I, as of right now, don't trust those patches because they've both been coming up with something that I've never even done in my entire life. And plus, it's not even coming up with what I do on a daily basis. That's been kind of crazy. But no, I went and I just made up my own discovery packet. I've jam-packed it full with photo evidence, screenshots, acts, like law acts that these people have actually went against. I printed out those forms and I signed them all and I put them in with the letter. And I'm going to be actually taking this right into my judge tomorrow morning. I actually I finished with it today. I was finally able to print out the last few of the photos that I needed today for that.
Is your court hearing tomorrow?
No, my next court hearing is August 15th.
Do you have a lawyer?
I do have a lawyer, but she's a public defender, and she hasn't really been representing me to the best of her abilities. Like, for instance, just a small instance is I've had eyewitnesses to not only the father's drug use, but to his abuse towards me and my children. And every time that I asked my lawyer, can we please bring these witnesses to stand because they, these people, in a sense, are evidence to this case. And she's denied me for these past 7 months on ever bringing any of my eyewitnesses to stand.
Mr. Davis, can she just bring in her evidence and try and give it to judge like that, or doesn't she have to go through her court-appointed attorney in order to get that to be
I'm
submitted?
sending, so the packet that I built was actually going, I made copies of the same exact thing that the judge is going to be getting. I made one out for the judge. I made one out for my lawyer. I made one out because I was actually appointed, court appointed a victim specialist representative due to the charge of him breaking into my home. So all of these people are going to be getting the same thing.
So to answer your question, Deidre, I don't know what the law is in her state, but if you were in California, you could do that. And it's best to go through your court-appointed attorney, assuming that, he's working with you and follow your directions. But one of the things that you would want to make sure is that it's admissible evidence. So many times people bring forth something and they believe it's evidence that we should be relying on in court or in society. I'll give you an example. Recently, somebody said, oh, they found something on Google, and they believe that that was evidence enough to convict someone. Google's not admissible in court.
I like how you use that as an example because that's exactly what the father brought to the CYS's attention about my paramour. He Googled his name because, like I said, my paramour was an eyewitness and did catch the father prowling. So the charges that he received was prowling, and I want to say harassment, and he did have a PFA violation, but for some reason the judge declined that. And I'm going to be asking more questions about that because further reviewing my PFA, the father is from New York State and I reside in PA. And it states in my PFA rules and guidelines that if you were to intentionally cross those state lines and commit that PFA violation, that it actually falls under a federal offense. And just recently, I noticed on my, because in PA, almost everything is public. So I was able to actually keep up to date on the court hearings before even receiving the mail notification that I would receive. And they just dropped his PFA violation. So I actually wrote to this victim specialist representative that asked me to write about the emotional and psychological damage that I had to be put through during all of this. And I wrote that into her. And I even, provided a copy of my PFA, highlighted where it stated. And, I'm sending all that in along with all this other, discovery packet that I've been able to create and find evidence of. But I've been able to do a pretty good job on being able to get my hands on the proof and evidence that I needed. For instance, most of the evidence that I provided in this packet that I'm going to be sending to all these court officials are actually documentations from a court official referring to my paramour.
Deidre, I'll give you an even more egregious example. In Los Angeles County, they used to, especially to the detention report at the very first hearing, they used to attach a printout, usually from the police department or the Department of Justice, of your name with all of your criminal charges. But right on that printout is stamped something. And you have to kind of look at it closely because it's, a bad copy usually. But it says basically, warning, do not use this printout for any official purposes because it hasn't been verified. So I'm going to give you an example. If you put my name through the system, Vincent Davis, every Vincent Davis in the world, or in California at least, is going to come up. Some will have criminal charges, some won't. And if I'm a parent in a CPS case, I automatically become that person. The only way to verify information of a criminal nature, whether it's a printout from the police or the California Department of Justice or Google, is to match up the fingerprints of mine with the fingerprints that make up that record.
Wow.
Because so many times people get convicted or people get their name sullied in the courtroom because they had the same name as some guy who committed a crime.
Mm-hmm.
I have a case right now in Riverside County. The grandmother on this case is, I think, a nurse or a retired nurse. She's lived in the same house in Riverside for like 30 years, maybe 40 years. Okay. She's lived in this house. They wouldn't release the kid to her because they got a hit when they ran her name that somebody by that name had a CPS case up in Northern California. She said, I've never been to Northern California. Obviously, a person with the same name, right? The kid was distraught about being away from parents and not being able to go with the grandmother. The social workers were using that one hit to keep the kid away from the grandmother.
Even though they couldn't really prove that that was like that person individually, just because they have the same name.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
I mean, how many like John Does are there? That's
Is that
ridiculous.
because no one challenges it? Is that why no one challenged that the authenticity of that document?
I did, and so did the attorney for the other parent. But we lost that argument because, but there's a reason why. Because the judge ordered that they verify it or release to another relative within 24 hours. And I think they ended up releasing the kid later that day. And then a few days later, we get the info that it's not the same woman. It's just a woman with a different name.
So were they able to then have their choice of having the child go with that grandma instead, or that grandma still didn't get a kid? Oh, okay.
Yes. So, this whole thing about using Google, and even sometimes what you think are official records, is a very slippery slope. Some people, think it's not a big deal in certain situations, and that we can pick and choose when we use information like that and when we can't use information like that. But being a lawyer, having done this for so long, I don't like to pick and choose. I just like to have one rule and keep it that way. And if you can satisfy the evidentiary burdens, great. Okay, you got a case. If you can't, let's not speculate. Someone told me recently, where there's smoke, there must be fire. And this was a person. No, it wasn't you. This was a person who lost their kids through CPS, through rumor, gossip, and innuendo. And she had the nerve to tell me, where there's smoke, there must be fire. Like, are you kidding me? You are becoming the person you despise. For your own purposes. That's what social workers do. Rumor, gossip, innuendo, twisting the facts, all to get what they think is right. I'm going to tell you something. Social workers that do this, they actually believe they're doing God's work. They actually
That's
believe
the problem.
this.
That's the problem.
They have been convinced through college and through trainings that they are God's messengers to save children from the abusive parents and relatives. And that's the excuse that we can use to lie. You remember we were talking about that that Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals where some lady, there was a young woman attorney, someone sent her in as basically as a pawn to argue that social workers could lie. And one of the things that they were arguing was, well, we're trying to save kids. We should be able to lie sometimes. It might be necessary.
Yeah.
Luckily, the three justices, who I think were all conservative appointees, basically, laughed her out of the courtroom. Like, what? We should allow social workers to lie? Are you kidding me?
And you said that she was shocked when she got that response. Like she really stood up there stern, I can lie.
Either she had been brainwashed or she had rehearsed her presentation, like any good attorney. But can you imagine that we, especially in this area of life, that we will allow under any circumstance gossip, rumor, and innuendo to control our decisions? It's not a court of law, but do we have any standards? And are they always on the slippery slope? Now, I want to get back to you, Miss Courtney. Unfortunately, you didn't get a chance to see 00 or Corey Okorocha.
Yeah.
an attorney turned forensic drug testing expert who all he does is testify now as an expert witness. And I don't know if he mentioned it Saturday, but on a previous show like this, we had him on as a guest, and he talked about the drug patch. The drug patch is basically a joke.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, yeah.
And he and I began to have this conversation. We never finished it. Here on the West Coast, there's something called the Kelly Fry test. There's some, in his opinion, he didn't even think it would meet Kelly Fry, and it certainly wouldn't meet, back on the East Coast, they use a standard called Dalbert. It wouldn't meet Dalbert.
What are the standards in those situations? I think you should have a breakdown of that, because you always talk about what Kelly Fry is, or it can happen, but never what it is. Like, what are...
He did the other day when Corey was put on the spot, when Mr. Davis asked him what's kind of the difference. He goes, well, that's illegal.
How the two were merging is what he asked him, how that one is overshadowing the other. And he said, pretty much, he said that they're merging together just fine, was Corey's kind of answer to that. But like, I'm talking about, like, so what is the standard? Are we talking about, like, what is the issues that are being looked at when you say, what's the Kelly Fry standard?
Okay. It's kind of long. Do you really want me to get into it?
No. You know what? No, let's not.
We have another guest waiting.
Yeah.
Here's an easy one.
What
is a paramour? Someone tell me what a paramour is.
What is that? You keep saying
A paramour is a fancy word for a boyfriend or a girlfriend.
Oh, I would have never thought.
Okay.
I thought it was like your own personal write-up or something.
You guys
have been eating me up this whole time.
I did not know what a paramour was.
Okay, hold on a second.
I had no clue. I thought it maybe was Paramount's sister. No
I'm glad you asked, Gary. I'm glad you asked.
Hey, what do you get when two Paramounts mate? You get a paramour.
Okay, Darren, I'm going to read something real fast to you.
Oh, shoot.
All right.
What is the Kelly Fry rule? In California, the California Supreme Court ruled on this case in a case called People versus Kelly in 1976. All right. And it basically says, to satisfy the requirement, the proponent of the scientific evidence and testimony must show three basic things. Number one,
okay,
the technique for this scientific experiment has gained general acceptance in the particular field to which it belongs. Number two, any witness testifying on general acceptance is properly qualified as an expert on this subject. And number three, correct scientific procedures were used in this particular case and test. Okay. Now, there's a lot of, wiggle room, right? But the most important thing to me, and what OO talks about, is number three, the correct scientific procedures were used in the particular case. We just assume that when CPS folks take a test, that the correct scientific procedures are used. Now, Courtney, I don't want to throw you off into, Never Never Land, but I don't think, and you need to talk to your lawyer about this, that we learned from OO that drug screens do not pass the Kelly Fry test for admissibility of whether you're positive or negative in a case. And I think that's really proven in a lot of my cases where they say the drug screen came back positive, so they sent it out for a drug test. And then at the drug test, it came back negative. That means you weren't using drugs or you didn't test positive for drugs. One of the problems with the patch is that, as OO said, it's exposed to the environment. You don't know who or what is floating in the air or you come in contact with. And there was a big to-do in Orange County many years ago about people losing their kids based upon faulty drug patch tests. Okay? So I don't know if you know this, but it's federal law that if you test positive for something, you can demand a retest. And if they don't retest it, they can't use it
Mhm.
in court. Okay. So in Orange County, there was this big thing. Now, one of the things I learned, which I didn't know, but I learned later, you know why they use drug patch tests? Because they're cheap. They're very inexpensive. There's no lab involved that has to have millions of dollars worth of equipment. So they say, oh, do this drug patch. I don't think, according to OO and my humble opinion, drug patch tests don't even meet the Kelly Fry standard. So you using them means nothing, right? You might as well stick a
Bubble gum on it.
Don't say it.
one of those ketone tests in your blood sugar
Oh, shoot.
and see if the strip comes back positive or not. That's about how reliable that is.
Oh,
No, I've
Lord.
gotten to the point where I personally reached out to my family doctor and I asked, because I just thought it was a little funny how I was doing all these drug screenings, whether they were both, because they've made me do a urine and the patch like for 6-7 months straight. And like I said, I only
You
had
passed all
one.
the urines?
I passed every single urine. It only came up with alcohol or THC. I'm 26 years old and I've never had substance abuse for anything. So I'm
Good for
I'm
you.
allowed
Good for you.
to enjoy being an adult and being able to be responsible. And they know that, and I've told them that, because they've even said, well, you have alcohol in your system. And I would look at them and I'm like, and I have no substance abuse, and I'm able to do that. I'm 26 years old and I'm allowed to do that. That's my God-given right to, be able to have a glass of wine with dinner, or go and meet my bosses, because they're a husband and wife. They own the restaurant that I work in, and they're big bourbon cigar people. So once in a while, after a really, really busy weekend, we'll all gather up and we'll have a drink after our shifts. I'm allowed to do that. And I told them this, and I was like, you're not going to sit here and take every last thing away from you. You've already taken enough from me. I still have my rights, and me being able to be a 26-year-old, I have that right to be able to consciously make the right decisions and still be able to have a drink whenever I can. They never bothered me about that ever again, but it just seemed really funny after this 7 months
There's a
long.
lot of people listening out there.
after
Don't
the 7
bury
months
yourself.
after the 7-month long process, I'm now having cocaine show up in a drug patch. But the very next day that my drug patch was taken off of my skin and sent to a lab, I did a urine test, and the only thing that came up was my medical marijuana. And I told the people, I was like, see, and I know these things are not true for multiple reasons. Because for one, if I was actually doing that drug, it would come up with that and my THC
So
still.
that's a great. So your argument is like,
Yeah,
what's
Mr.
right
Davis just said,
right?
then that
Listen,
throws that other one out, doesn't
but
it?
listen, but here's the thing. Listen to how Mr. Davis told you to approach this question, and yet told you how to pose this response to what you now
Darren, we can't hear you.
saying,
Darren.
trying to
Darren, we can't hear you.
I don't know why. I'm right here. Can you hear me now? There's
No,
nothing
we
changed.
can't. No. You're like, ooh, ah, ee, ah.
Your internet speed, Darren, was a little shaky.
Oh, shoot.
Unbelievable. Is it still going that way? That's
Try
a damn
talking.
good point I had going too.
I know you were like, oh, ee, ah, ah, ooh.
So let me. Can we hear
wait, hold
am I
on,
clear now?
We're gonna make that TikTok out of that one.
That's fine. So
You were on a roll too.
so what I was saying was this: was okay. You had whatever. You go out, you do your thing. You get the test.
Oh, no.
All right, you don't do drugs. Really? Again?
It's like it knows you have something
I'm done.
important
I'm done
to
talking.
say.
I'm done talking.
Don't move. If you just
Yeah,
stand
it's
still,
the
I think
devil.
you can do it.
Exactly. Because this is very important.
You know when the
Hold on,
internet
watch.
first
I'm gonna try
came out
this.
and you used
Wait.
to connect to AOL
All
with
right,
your
I'm gonna do it this
telephone
way.
line.
Oh yes, and it would take a long time to dial in and everything. Doot, 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 doot.
Right. I think that's what Darren's
Well, this is
trying
like
to
a monsoon out here. You got to understand the storm and the monstrosity, what's happening outside of this tinfoil house of mine.
Yeah, we've been getting some really nasty weather in
Oh, really?
Pennsylvania too. It's actually past
Yeah,
a couple of
it's-
days. We've had tornado
Yeah, I
watches.
think I just make this up.
Well, you should have done your show from outside, so we could have all like
All right, so
pitied with you and your flooding.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? We've gone past the halfway point, Courtney.
Stay tuned for the next show for Darren's point.
You this.
Can you come back on later this
Yeah.
week?
Later this week, absolutely.
Okay. I'm gonna tell Grace to get you back on the call. Maybe Darren's internet will be working by then. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much for coming on seriously and sharing with us. I appreciate it, and I will see you.
Calling
Wait, come on.
I'm done with this.
Come on before the 15th. So if you have any more questions, hopefully Mr. Davis can help you.
Yeah.
Before your court date.
Hey, Grace, if you're listening, bring her back. All right,
Before
Courtney.
the
Good night.
15th.
Good night.
Every time I.
All right.
Darren, we're hearing every other word from you again.
Hey, Darren, I'm going to bring on the next guest. If you want to mute yourself, just go ahead.
Hello.
Okay, everyone. We have Suzanne Joyce Haftings Battaglia. How are you?
I've been better.
Where are you calling in from?
Cleveland, Ohio.
Cleveland, Ohio. I used to go to Cleveland, Ohio once a year in June for a conference every year. And I used to land at the Cleveland airport. And in this little, I don't know if it was a city or an area, it was right outside of Cleveland where the hotel was. I forget the name of the place.
Probably Holiday Inn.
No, it wasn't a Holiday Inn. But if you say the hotel, I'll remember it. It wasn't really a luxury hotel. They had a really nice conference room that would fit, 500 people. And it was an annual seminar. But anyway, so what is going on with you and CPS in Cleveland, Ohio?
Well, I got grandparent rights a little over a year ago. I got them on my own. I did everything pro se. I was very fortunate because it's unusual to get it by yourself, representing yourself. And I did. My daughter was very, very unhappy with this. I have a then 5-year-old, he's now 6. And she was expecting when we started having difficulties with our relationship. That child is now 1.5 years. And she just decided, because I wanted boundaries from her and her sister, that, we'll just take the kids away. And mom's just kidding about trying to get grandparent rights. So then I got them. They were mad. I'm giving you the really short version. And they've come up with every reason in the world to take me back to court, including a pacifier getting chewed by my dog. I'm not even kidding. So I've been to court multiple times. So now the new thing is my grandson from the oldest daughter, and they're both narcissists, and I don't use that term loosely. I'm a nurse. I do know what it means. And they are, if you had them in a dictionary, their pictures both would be there. They love going to court. They don't care what they say to me. They don't care what they do to me. They're really pretty much vicious. My therapist has told me to stay away from the oldest one. She's really dangerous to me, physically, emotionally. She has abused me. So I try to keep as far away from her as possible. But her son wanted to see me. He missed his grandmother. I did start to see him with her knowledge. He apparently had a foot fetish. He came over one day and he kissed my foot. I didn't like it. It was a very odd experience. I knew something was off. He didn't just come out and announce this. It happened. We were on the couch laying to watch a movie, opposite sides. He wanted to watch this movie. And so all he did was kiss my foot, took a sock off, kissed my foot, didn't like it. He got up, went to the bathroom. He admits to pleasing himself. I hope I can say that on here. I don't know. And he came back out, pretended he had stole a sock that he took off. And I saw him throw it on the floor, pretending like he was looking for it. I told him why it was wrong for several reasons. I'm a nurse. I'm seeing your cousins. This could ruin things. You cannot do this. You cannot do this with your grandmother. You know, blah, blah, blah. Well, his mom and I haven't talked for probably a year and a half because we don't. And I told her, I contacted her and I said that he did this thing and I need to let you know about it. And she didn't want to meet with me. She insisted I tell her over the phone. And she said, oh yeah, I know he has this. And I'm like, so you didn't think it was a good idea to tell me, you know, so I wouldn't have a foot fight with him on the couch and I wouldn't have engaged any kind of activity on the couch. So she's like, no, you know, whatever. So then she wanted me to she went and told her ex-husband, who's his dad. I get threatening veiled threat messages by text the next day and that night, how he's going to come over and I better watch out. I'm going to ruin you. I'm going to go to tell the television, you know, the media that you're a dirty old woman, that you took advantage of him, you know, just blowing up the phone. He's a felon. He's just a terrible person. So anyway, so she, Oh, I'm sorry. So she files a police report. Then I filed a police report first against the ex-husband, his dad, because of the threats. I explained what happened with the foot thing. I said what happened. I said, you know, I'm afraid he's going to come over here. So I didn't get to see my granddaughter that weekend because I had visitation. But because he was threatening to come over, I canceled it. So next thing I know, I'm getting protective order complaints from his mother. He's 16, but he's got ADHD and he's got learning disabilities. So he acts more like an 8-year-old. And then the daughter, who has the 2 children by 2 different fathers, she goes and files a protective order saying I'm stalking. They both said. So now I'm under investigation, once by CPS where my grandson lives in one county, and now CPS in where the county I live in. And I'm being charged with sexual abuse.
What?
Because now they're saying there was a second event where I touched his private area.
Oh my gosh.
That lasted an hour and a half. Now I'm 6 years old.
Wow.
And my
Holy
husband would
smokes.
be so happy if anything lasted an hour and a half. So when I
Right.
yes, so then the CPO hearing, which was the protective order that the youngest daughter put out, she didn't even bother to show up. So then the CPO hearing in Lake County, they saw it her way and agreed that I touched his private parts.
No way.
Came up in the hearing.
No.
And now, and being a nurse, I could lose my license. I could go to jail for 18 months, all on a lie. And
Wait, can I ask you a question?
yeah.
Didn't you originally say, though, that if it wasn't for you actually telling your daughter about the instance, that it like, is it like, I'm sorry, how to pose my question. You said that when it happened, you wanted to talk to your daughter about it. And when you did, she made it seem like, oh, yeah, she already knew about that. This is what goes on. And you're like, okay, well, shouldn't you have told me something about this? I would think that right there should be enough proof for you to have gone against her trying to charge you with sexual whatever, because of the fact that.
Yeah, and she put it in the text. She says it
So
was
that your proof of that is not enough to.
No,
Oh, good.
she put it in
Good,
the text,
good.
and
Keep that.
she said in the text, and I'll tell his therapist. And the reason she didn't tell me is we weren't talking.
And that they didn't consider that as enough evidence to prove that obviously not only did you not know that your grandson had this fetish, but that it was shocking to you when he did do what he
How
did. I
old is
mean,
the grandson?
how can you be the one charged with the sex offense?
He's 16, but he's quite.
Oh, okay, that's right. That's right. Sorry, I floated in there.
No,
a
that's
little bit
okay.
late. I'm sorry.
I think he started to see me as a girlfriend instead of a
Right.
grandma. And when he found out that I was discussing this with his mom, he even used the word us as in a way of saying we were a couple. And I wrote him back and I said, we are not us. There is no us.
Right.
See, everything
Mr. Davis,
is manufactured.
where are you at with
Oh boy,
this?
poor man.
Darren, we can't hear you.
So the other thing is my daughter, the mother of the older grandchild, she used CPS in her past when she was living with me as a child. So she's expert in coming up with these sexual accusations.
She has experience as like you had CPS in your life,
lying her ass off. Oh, I'm sorry.
and she got away with it or something. I'm confused.
Well, what happened in Texas was every time I was with somebody, even her own father, she would claim sexual abuse to get rid of him. And now she's using Lucas to do the same, but to get me away from the grandchildren. And
so there was no CPS case that was open. You just wanted to go get grandparent rights because they were not letting you see your grandchildren.
Right. And now it's
now that you have grandparents' rights, now they want to try and get you out of the picture altogether. So now they're trying to establish a CPS case because of the fact that they just don't want you in their life at all.
And they don't care what it'll do to me.
Wow.
They hate me that much. And I tried to get, I have my middle daughter that we're fine. I see my grandson with her. I still have visitation with one of the grandchildren, the grandson, because I don't think the magistrate buys this whole thing. But the granddaughter, who's 6, a year and a half old, I can't see because none of them would allow me to see her supervised again. And she's got that daughter has both the ex-husband, and the father of the baby believing this story that I'm a sexual abuser.
Oh my goodness.
So they're writing me nasty things, and
Jesus, that's terrible.
I'm in debt consolidation.
That's so awful.
I spent a lot of money getting the rights in the first.
These are your kids, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I ask why they hate you so much?
Well, they tell me they had a lousy childhood. The oldest one's dad is manic depressive, and my therapist thinks that she possibly could have a lot of
pure evil.
It is, and she says I've taken that daughter off of everything. I won't let her near me physically.
How do these children of yours even have their kids in their possession, knowing the kind of individual they are?
As you can see, what's happened to the grandson, and then the granddaughter, she's a cutter. She's had.
Oh my gosh! Maybe you should open up a CP case on your daughter. I'm sorry to say, but those children should not be with her.
That one's an adult and just got married, and that's a whole nother phone call. But Jessica is being manipulated by the older daughter. They're teaming up against me to keep me away from the grandchildren. And now it's come down to the determination they made in Lake County for CPS. They decided it was indicated. So, of course, my daughters ran with that instead of it just being, we don't know what happened, something happened. They automatically have labeled me a sexual abuser. They're not considering that, they're just saying, we don't know what happened. So now I filed an appeal with CPS, and I had that hearing yesterday. And I did bring up my daughter's past history. She did it 5 times just between the age of 5 and 15. She didn't like living in Ohio. She ran away using CPS to run away to Texas when she was about 15. And then she ended up back here in Ohio anyway because nobody wanted to keep her. So that didn't work. But but they didn't check in with anybody I gave them as references. They didn't check with anybody I had worked with. They only asked me a question about ever touching him. I said, absolutely not. They said, well, he said it lasted an hour and a half. And I said, wow. And then they never said any more. They never gave me a date. They never gave me a place. They want to know what size the couch was. I said, it's a couch. And then they want to know what the sock looked like. This is the sock. I don't know what that had to do with anything. And now I got 2 CPS in different counties. See, I wasn't kidding.
Well, not only that, you have a family that's in disarray. I mean, that's terrible.
Oh yeah, when Christine and I were in counseling, the woman hung up.
A therapist hung up?
Yeah.
No, it's CPS. You got some really big family problems here.
She basically said, "Have a nice life."
I mean, I know this sounds really harsh, but you know what? Like you said, your career and your mental stableness or emotional, whatever you want to call it, is more important than to have a relationship with these grandchildren. That it might come to the point where you just have to not see these grandchildren if that's what they're going to take you down with. I mean, it sounds harsh, but really, what are you now dealing with on the aftermath?
But now,
yeah, really.
But now they've attacked me as a person. It's not even.
That's what I mean, though. Yeah.
So now I've got 5. I've got 4 more. I got at least 4 more court dates, and I have an ad litem now I have to pay. I have another CPS. I have a lawyer.
Do you want to do this? Because Mr. Davis, she could just walk away, right?
Oh, you're muted, Mr. Davis.
You don't read lips?
No.
I almost just threw something through the speaks. I thought it was me again.
So here is the problem.
Which one?
She is a licensed nurse.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
If this stuff sticks, like if she walks away, she could lose her license.
I'm ruined.
I'm surprised you're still able to see your other grandkids knowing that you have this indicated sex abuse charge on you.
Well, my middle daughter knows.
So the sex charge is a criminal charge.
Mm-hmm. It will be.
Yeah, but you would think that she wouldn't be able to see her other grandchildren then too, right? Like no kids, right?
And I'm a school nurse. I'm a school nurse.
Yeah, you need to do something about this pretty quick, probably.
She is, but it's becoming too expensive is what she's trying to say, right?
Yeah.
What state are you in?
Ohio.
Cleveland, Ohio, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a private attorney representing you?
Yeah, and he's a former prosecutor.
Okay.
But I do have a polygraph scheduled for Monday. And when I talked to CPS with the appeal, I said, I'm doing a polygraph. They're willing to put that into consideration to change it from indicated to unsubstantiated, because my grandson is he's from an abusive family. And I mean, his dad was killing cats in front of him with a hammer, kind of abuse.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, why do they have their kids in their
I
care?
know.
I don't understand.
And
crazy.
so he that on top of ADHD and this other stuff, and there's way more than I've told you. I have recommended he needs to have a psychologist look at it.
Yeah.
Because
they keep these kids in the home with the abuse going on. They do nothing about it when it's being brought to their attention. But they want to go after poor grandma that all she wanted to do was have a relationship with her grandkids. Right. And it's always all backwards.
And now it's turned into this criminal investigation.
That's the thing that's terrible, is that it's such a minute action just turned into a life-ruining event, you know?
Yep. And I don't know why they hate me this much. I was a single mom. I did the best I could. They had clothes on their back, the whole 9 yards. I don't know. You
probably didn't give them something that they wanted in their older age. Maybe they wanted you to take care of the kid full time, and they blame it on you. Who knows? But that's not right what they're doing. That's what I say.
Everything was fine until I said I wanted boundaries and respect. Because
it is.
Yeah, but narcissists, they want control of everything. Believe me. That's what you said, narcissist. If they had a picture of your
those
children, you
people that
said
try
they'd
to
be there.
control everything.
They are so joyful over this whole thing. It's unbelievable. You would not.
And that should tell you enough right there. As much as you would hate to say it, you just need to walk away because you'll never make sense with these
But
kind of people.
Yeah. But now my
Mr.
livelihood
Davis,
is
make it a 3-banger. 3 for walking away.
Let's say that it goes in your favor and you don't get charged with it and it kind of pretends that it goes away. Are you gonna still try and have a relationship with like this grandson and still continue that route, or do you think that this is enough to say, okay, I can't go that route anymore?
Well, the grandson's a goner, but I want to still see my younger grandson and my youngest granddaughter. As far as their mother goes, I could care less. I don't like my daughters any longer. I have no feeling for them. But I don't think that Jessica's, to be on the kind side, she's got maybe one scruple, and she's short of the rest. She's a follower.
But for you to be able to be in those lives with those grandchildren, you're going to kind of have to still put up with her then, right?
Well, the way we've arranged it previous to this was her fiance, who's 10 years younger than her and barely wet behind the ears, he would meet with me instead of her. So the exchange was fairly nice. But now that he believes I'm a sexual predator, he's like melted like ice. And I don't think she should be around Lydia. Oh, I'm sure. So it's like, yeah.
But that's what I mean. See, you're already going to be set up for failure with those grandkids now because they already are brainwashed, thinking you are something you're not, and then they're just going to make another problem for you. I feel like, I don't know, it's hard because you want to be in your grandchildren's lives, but then look what they're doing.
I'm in protection mode of my life, myself.
That's what I mean. So to continue to be in these lives of the other grandchildren, though, you're almost setting yourself up for another kind of make-believe situation to hurt you because these children of yours are just not, sound people, it sounds like.
And now I don't know what to do about the CPS because I'm not fighting just one. Now I'm fighting two in different counties.
Listen, you know how you eat an elephant? You know how you eat an elephant?
One bite.
One bite at a time. That's how you conquer this. One thing at a time. You got a bunch of issues. Take one thing at a time and achieve that goal. Because you got so much. It doesn't matter. The thing is you got so much going on. You can't focus on 20 things. One thing at a time.
And it's all bleeding into these other
cases. You'll see you get yourself back.
But each of the other cases,
you get your head right too.
All the cases are bleeding into this accusation.
Do the polygraph and go from there.
Right. Yeah.
Then I know.
I think that's the only thing that can save me right now is the polygraph.
Do the polygraph and go from there. Yeah. Or believe whatever your attorney is telling you, because like you said, he's a prosecutor and you're paying for him. Hopefully he can guide you in the right direction.
Yeah. It's the emotional stuff too. I just don't know what's okay to say now anymore. I don't know. I just don't know how to fight, how to sit back and just let them do this.
Nothing. Well said.
Well, it sounds like you're well represented with the prior prosecutor. Is he going to or is she going to represent you in both cases?
Yes, he does. He's been in this with me from the beginning, pretty much.
You might want to mention to him to consider making a motion to consolidate the two cases.
Yeah, because they're in two courts, because one child was born when she was married and one was born out of wedlock. So right now I'm in common pleas and juvenile.
So consider making that motion and see what he says.
Because it's even more complicated being in two courts. I got two magistrates. I've got
because you're in danger of having two different decisions.
Yep. Yeah. I already have two different ones.
So talk to your attorney about saying that. Hey, you know what, Suzanne, we've come to the end of the show.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your story. I hope you keep in contact with us, and if you want to come back and talk
Okay.
more about your case, we'll definitely welcome that. Usually we have two
Yes,
guests
please,
scheduled, but only one guest shows up. So we never have the problem of trying to have two guests in a
for sure,
45-minute show.
Well, if you'd like an update, I have like 3 hearings this month
Okay.
and then a possible
All right.
trial next,
That would be great.
depending on 3 trials.
Well, God bless you and good luck to you, okay?
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
Yeah, good luck. Go get him.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Any closing comments from either of you?
I'm just waiting on my headset.
All right. Darren, you're still freezing. I don't know if you know that.
I know that look on his face. That's just that's perfect right there. Screenshot.
I wonder if Darren has Spectrum. Have you ever heard of a Spectrum, Darren?
Yes, I have. It's
we
through
got
Charter, I
Xfinity.
think.
This is Xfinity. Look at these. See these boots? Look at that.
What are you showing us now? Your legs?
My boots.
Oh.
All right, folks, I'm going to let both of you
Oh,
go. We'll
man.
see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. Good night.
Bye.